This is what I have experienced. I want to write this as a farewell, as a way of gratitude to all those who cared about us, to those who asked for our emails to write to us and advise us. Also to those I know who, upon hearing this case in their video through their channel, they recognized our story and have approached my family again, possibly as a farewell, because despite the signs of support, I know that we are no longer alone against this. Things have not improved since we decided to tell it. On the contrary, we have already counted 12 different beings in the house. 5 of them arrived after the publication of our story on their channel. I would not like to think that it is a consequence of this, since we have not even listened to their videos. Here in the house, only the phone calls that we had with you just a few weeks ago. After your last call, we had a quite quiet night, really too much. It felt at times like before all this started, we all talked here and remembered my mother. There were no steps. There was no laughter coming into an empty room. There were no breaths coming out of the darkness. After the quiet, someone knocking on my bedroom door woke me up after 2 in the morning. It was my sister asking for help. Something had happened to my dad. I jumped into bed and discovered my dad lying at the bottom of the stairs. I thought he was unconscious. That's what he looked like, but he couldn't move. We called an ambulance and it arrived just a few minutes later. When we left for the ambulance, I noticed that the neighbors were watching us. Some from their windows, others on the sidewalk. But none of them came up to ask us what was happening. Maybe it's my imagination. But I felt the fear, the uncertainty in their eyes. While my brother and I followed the ambulance towards the hospital, I was remembering what my father was able to explain to us in the midst of the pain he felt. He was still reviewing things from work after he stayed talking with us until late. He goes to the kitchen to leave his cup of coffee. And when he was going to go down the stairs, he heard a noise behind him. And he says it sounded like my voice. He didn't see anything in the darkness. He went down the step and felt 2 hands pushing hard down. And he fell hard. The sound, he woke up my sister, who came out, and when she saw him, she went to ask me for help. And that was the starting point, so that these things that have arrived can touch us, can influence us physically, and we are all afraid, already too afraid. With Dad recovering from a broken arm, that back injury as a result of the fall, we received a call from a great friend of my father to whom I recently told about our situation. I have known him since I was a child. He is a great person, a great friend of my parents and us, and with a tremendous faith in God and in his family. He is of the Mormon religion, and he offered to stay with us for a weekend in order to calm us down, to talk with us about God and stop seeing these things in some way. Anyway, I think he was not convinced that what we were experiencing was real. He even had to talk with the priest and Mrs. Carmen, who had come to visit my father. The priest talked for a long time with my father's friend, and I felt that changed his view of the circumstances a little. I don't know what they talked about. We took turns attending to my father, including him with a naturalness as if he were part of the family. Then we calmed down in the living room and tried to watch TV, but nobody was paying attention. So we decided to turn it off. And we talked. At 3 in the morning, I fell asleep while looking at a magazine that I was leafing through. My father's friend and my sister continued chatting for a while. I heard my father's friend laugh in a way very strange, almost macabre. And then my sister remained silent. I looked up and my father's friend saw me with a very nervous smile. He continued talking and the laughter was repeated, and there I saw that it wasn't him. Someone was laughing behind his back. My sister and I got up and told him to come with us, but he refused. He wanted to stay sitting there as if nothing was happening, but finally we convinced him. Even though they noticed the noises, they refused to believe what had just happened. We had coffee. My sister said goodbye to go to her room, but not before stopping by my dad's room to see if he needed anything. I asked my father's friend to tell me if he needed anything else, but he told me that everything was fine. I helped him prepare one of the armchairs so that he could sleep in it, and I went upstairs to try to sleep for a while. Then I heard movement on the ground floor, and I thought it was my father's friend. In the kitchen, the noises continued. Tiredness won. I fell asleep. Shortly after, I woke up to a fairly loud sound, something that I wouldn't know how to explain. I wanted to believe that it was just my imagination, so I sent a message to my father's friend a few minutes later to ask him if everything was okay. And he replied, "Yes, don't go down. I heard voices at the bottom. Go slowly, I thought. At the same time, go to see what was happening. The footsteps outside my door. The heavy steps and the tired breathing made me imagine a fat woman was outside like that. Fear paralyzed me. Until I fell asleep. A while later, in the morning, the friend of my father was talking to my dad. He had a very tired face, as if he hadn't slept in days. Without telling me much, he left, but later I found out what happened to him. When I tried to sleep in the living room, I hear breathing coming from the guest bathroom. This is normal for us, but obviously he didn't. No, he wasn't used to it. Without turning on the lights, he got up and went to the bathroom. He closed the door. When he was about to return to the couch in the dark, he saw a silhouette. A silhouette hiding behind him, behind the chair where he was sleeping. He carefully approached the coffee table to take his cell phone. He turned on a lamp and slowly checked behind the chairs. There was no sign of anyone. He lay down and closed his eyes. When he did so, he felt like someone. He climbed up the chair, and before he could react, he felt a bite on his face, on one cheek, almost on his jaw, a bite from a toothless mouth. In the darkness, opening his eyes and struggling, he thought he saw an old woman above him. And as if he was able to get her off of him, he jumped down from the couch, turned on the light in the living room quickly, but there was no one. There was no trace of any woman or whatever he felt on him. He got out and tried to sleep in the car from there. He was able to see how the curtains moved in my dad's room, as if someone was levitating. Levitating because you couldn't see his arms or legs. Just something was moving quickly in the room. My father was alone and couldn't walk. That's when he received a message and asked me not to leave my room. I'm sorry to tell you that this is all I want to tell you. There are strong and terrible things. There are personal things that have happened in recent days. But above all, my sister and my father are the ones who I have suffered. I want to invite you in some way, so that people who have surely never gone through situations like this do not accuse us of being liars. And I do not regret at all having shared this with you. As I told you, it has helped us to make our story. There are people who have come forward to help, but after seeing certain reactions, they run away. It is something I would not recommend. There are times when even your own family does not believe you and treats you like crazy. Imagine when you decide to publish it. And I am not referring to that minority of comments that your channel has received, but those made by people, friends of friends, who have shared our story on their walls, pointing out that they know us. And it is very sad to see the reaction of people who do not believe in that type of things. We have given up and we are going to move. If we are going to move house, and when it is possible, I hope that in the middle of next month, the priest will go to bless the house, and I hope that we can be quiet for a month, a week, or one day, rest for a night like before. Is all I will tell you if something happens, but I hope not. I hope not to write to you again. I hope I don't have to tell you many of the things that have been left in that house. But know if they don't hear from us again, we will have had our happy ending. Thank you with all my heart for having listened. Thank you to all those who have cared about us, to whom they have dedicated a prayer or real advice. Thank you for everything.